Crouch Peak stream. Here we go. We are live. I'm here on Twitter Spaces as well, in case anybody is joining me on that front. So thank you to everybody who is tuning in. It has been quite the week for uh, upsets, certainly. Man, talk about not knowing who's going to come through, right? This first stage was unbelievable. In case anybody did not tune in, Bad News Eagles and Mouse taking the 3-0 is an absolutely huge, um, unexpected result, at least from my opinion. And I feel like a lot of individuals um, were also feeling the same way in that regard. Of course, I just want to preface this podcast by saying I was expected to go to Rio. But I did not. I have quite a few personal obligations that I think kind of, when weighing out 19 days in a foreign country or, closer to 3 weeks, um, with just as much as I have going on, it was probably best for me to stay home just because I wanted to efficiently cover the major as best as I can. And I didn't feel like me being there was the best for my impact as far as Dust 2 is concerned and Crouch Peak is concerned and in general. So here I am. I was very much expecting to. There's OJ. Um, so yeah, honestly, I was a little disappointed to not be going. Obviously, with this being a historic event and me not finishing out my Dallas tenure. That was unfortunate, but um, a part of this gig is recognizing your limits. And yeah, I think 2 3 weeks over there would have been a lot for me just with everything going on. So very unfortunate, but I don't want to make that the huge principle of this conversation. I don't want this to be the big talking point. We're here to talk Counter-Strike, obviously. And I'm going to first off start this with my hard underrate, and that was far and away Mouse. Anybody who was internally discussing this major with me over in the Dust 2 Discord, um, they know how anti-Mouse I was. I very blindly did not agree with the trajectory in which this team was going. Um, Honestly, I didn't really respect or believe in the vision that Dexter was kind of painting as the in-game leader. I already had my biases against him coming from a weaker region. Obviously, the Oceanics region does not quite build the best talent, JKS being kind of the pinnacle. And then, of course, that 100 Thieves / Renegades lineup that saw its peaks and valleys pre-COVID. And yeah, I did not really believe in what they had to offer, and I am pleasantly proven wrong. The one that I think shocked everyone was Bad News Eagles. Now I know I did see some tweets entering the event. Maybe this team is the team that's gonna feel not so shaken by the crowd, just because when you look at Bad News Eagles, they are unsigned. They do not have organizational representation. So every time they come into an event, they are coming in as an underdog. So they've kind of wore that mystique all the way through. And as we saw, Bad News Eagles was totally unfazed by the crowd. And I think we kind of came to a realization that a shaky set of Brazilian teams were not lifted by the crowd, which I thought would happen. I overrated hard 0 Nation, and actually they are my de facto number one hard overrate out of every team here. Now, I did expect EG to do a little better, and I went back and I played the simulation because the 9Z loss to me was like a huge oops. But when you run the simulation, it's pretty likely they would have played Vitality, Furia, Cloud9, one of those three, or maybe multiple of those three. So I don't think EG was going to make it regardless. 0 Nation for me is the far and away biggest upset here. I know Imperial was at home, and I know like they felt more like the home team because of the Last Dance saga and Fallen being there and stuff, but I really expected this to be like the event that Zero Zero Nation was going to come out and be that number 2 team for Brazil. And I'm just here to officially state I am done. I am done with Zero Zero Nation. I'm done propping them up. I'm done hyping Tuckold. I'm done convincing myself and others that this core of young guns combined with this veteran status is what they need. That I cannot do this anymore as far as this optimism with them. That loss to IHC was just, man, like I want to give all props to IHC, and I will. Congratulations to them. Getting that win over Zero Zero Nation is a huge win from an Oceanic perspective. But wow, is that such a massive upset if you are Cold and Taco. I mean, these are former major winners. I'm not really interested in all of the extra stuff. I know Try and Dumao are young. I know that they have, 3/5 of that squad is inexperienced on that stage, but I mean, for me, that's it. I can't do it anymore. Yeah. When I do look at the 8 teams that I did expect to go through, I will be transparent with this. I did expect to do a little better in this regard. I didn't expect OG and Vitality to face in the final round. I think that kind of did a lot of shaking up people's pick'ems. I feel like Vitality, C9, Furia, OG, I feel like Outsiders, those ones were pretty strong guesses as far as assumptions for who would make it through. But obviously, Zero Zero Nation is my big boo-boo, and then my Evil Genius's bias does come in. My question is with EG is, what do you do with those guys? We're seeing this little saga with like Kassad coming out and being very anti-blueprint. And of course, there are some other pundits that are, and you're totally allowed to do that, of course. By the way, thank you, 1HP The Hots, for the follow. That was a few minutes ago, so thank you. I totally missed that. But in regards to the this EG project, I understand the lower echelons. I understand the EG White, EG Black. And of course, making the major is a huge, huge feat. Do not get me wrong. Where they were in January versus where they are now, immense strides gained. Being able to quickly shed that Stewie drama, and just kind of almost as if it never happened to come out of it in that regard. I do consider that very impressive. Scouting out Nealon, bringing him in, great move. Hex was a nice addition, even though he looked like an absolute shell of himself at the major. It was his first time. This guy has like no big events under his tutelage, so I am going to give him a pass in that regard. But I cannot give a pass to Cirque and Breeze. I just cannot do that. I'm not going to outright say replace them, of course, because that's not what I'm here for. But when you're asking, like, what do you do with EG, it does feel like they are leaning towards moving forward with this project, these 5. And Cirque was technically the best player at the event, and he was technically the best player in their elimination games. But again, for like well over a year now, he has not been a player in any capacity with the op that can look at Zywoo against OG today and how Nexa did a stellar job in map 1 of almost not making him play poorly, but just making Zywoo basically non-existent in the game. But then as the second map came through, you started to see those pockets where he was coming in with impact, and so they started to avoid him, make him start to rotate on the second map, which I believe was Inferno. And then map 3, Zywoo just gets unleashed, right? They can no longer ignore him. He makes like a couple nice plays with the scout. He starts popping off with the op, and all of a sudden all of the work from the first 2 maps is kind of moot. You cannot get that with Cirque. You can't get that with Cirque at all. I don't remember a single play through this first stage where it was like, okay, Cirque is taking over. Dexter takes over. Zywoo takes over. Simple takes over. Shiro. OC. Um, I mean, I can keep going, I guess, if I have to. James, I don't think I need to keep picking names out of the hat for semantics purposes. I think my point has been proven. Um, hey OJ, it's coming. I'll tell you what, you stick around and we'll do an 18 plus for you, buddy. But I do appreciate you popping in. I really do. Um, but going back to Cirque, it's when is the well tapped, because it feels like there's nothing there in the skill department for Cirque left. There's nothing left for him as far as reinventing himself as a player, as a talent. He seems to be very rounded out. And there's not much room for growth. Now, I know he's young from a numeric standpoint. He's like 21, 22, whatever he may be. But as far as his tenure at a tier 1 level, it's pretty well solidified. He's been with EG for years now, and I feel like what we have gotten out of Cirque is what we're going to get. So it's tough to convince me, even with Malik there, Vorborg, Valens, even the supplementary coaches on the other parts of the blueprint like Munster and Axe, even with them all combining forces, it's hard for me to understand how Cirque is going to grow beyond, because we have seen a reinvention of Breeze since this blueprint has kind of gone in full force. We've seen him play differently under the Nealon tutelage. We saw him experiment when Stewie was leader. We saw things from Breeze that suggested, I guess, a will to win. I don't want to suggest that Cirque doesn't have a will to win, because I don't want to state the notion that he's not trying. But if you're rounded out as a talent and there's nothing left to provide and there's nothing left to grow from, then, from a managerial standpoint, then a decision needs to be made. Whatever that entails, I don't know. We've talked about this on the Dust 2 podcast, Double Doors, previously. I have suggested if you want to take a risk, you can obviously shoot for Viz. That guy is a beast. He was arguably the best talent during ECL this last season. He was for sure the best opera last season. How does that translate in the next echelon? I don't know. But he's currently playing with the Stanislaw iteration of EG, I believe EG Black. So he's clearly malleable. Working with an in-game leader as tenured and as reputable as Stanislaw suggests that he can at least theorycraft and play comfortably with greater minds, and he can produce impact in that regard. Now, on the flip side, there's Ponalone. I don't personally think you give Ponalone a promotion opportunity just because his age is, you want to talk about rounded out as a talent. That guy is very far rounded out. Now, he is better than a lot of younger talent in the North American scene. But as far as the ceiling, it's not nearly, first of all, it's defined. It's very defined. We know what his ceiling is. His floor may be higher. But if we're talking about a blueprint situation where, we want to take a chance in that regard, it makes the most sense to go Viz up. And then honestly, you grab a guy like Slight, somebody who recently left Strife, and you could pluck him out of, I believe he's just playing Counter-Strike right now. So you grab him, throw him on EG White or Black actually, and you see what you can do there. That makes the most sense to me. If you were going to make a decision such as that, obviously. Now, I know that people are very adamant about removing people from EG just because the patience with this EG lineup is thin. Do you outright de facto cut somebody? No, you do not do it unless you have an outright replacement, best player available kind of replacement. I don't think it's worth the risk. So the only way it makes sense is if you do Viz, or if you can nail like a really, really strong talent. If like somehow one of these foreign ops were to leave after the major and you could somehow nail one of them, if possible. But again, speaking within reason here, it makes the most sense to probably call up Viz, or internally, if they feel super confident about Cirque, which they might, then you go forward with that. but whatever. On the topic of American oppers or America's oppers, one that is doing really well, one that has been very malleable during his growth and tenure with his team, Furia's Safe. That guy is unbelievable in terms of the growth from previous major to this major. And I had in my notes here, I had a question: has Safe arrived? I'm just going to go ahead and answer that in one word. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. The way that he handled himself through this stage, especially in front of the home crowd, when you try and recognize the circumstances, he hasn't been playing particularly well as far as like team play. It's been really tough for Furia to get on the same page. When Kea Serato was playing well, Yuri was kind of slipping. When Yuri was kind of playing well, Kea Serato wasn't able to find form. And then Safe had his pockets of brilliance in between all of that. And it all started to kind of click at the Road to Rio, America's RMR. From there on, it's just been like lights out. We have 5-6 maps played. I'm going to dig into his statistics actually fairly quickly. And yeah, so I look at this. He only had one game where he played poorly. And when I say poorly, I mean either in the red in rating or in the red in plus minus. And he actually did both. And that was against Big in that first round. And if anybody had forgotten, which, that was a pretty resilient comeback by Big. That was a blown lead by Furia on their home pick of Vertigo. So Big lets it go to Vertigo. Furia blows the lead, and they were up like 16, 10 or 11. I'm probably botching that. But after that, we see a complete turnaround, right? He has a good pickup game against 0-0 Nation. That's kind of a wash because we know how 0-0 Nation performed. But then he goes +1 against OG Dexter, who is a world-class talent. This guy is a world beater for sure. And he is going to be, assuming him and Nexa can stick together, obviously they have something good going with Fiku, Neofrag, and the likes of that lineup. But he really shined against Gamer Legion. Now, prior to the RMR, I would have maybe not looked at that performance with very much of a lens, but this Gamer Legion team is legit. They are a legitimate lineup. And I don't really need to get into details to prove that. They made it through a tough European RMR and made it to the very final round where they made it quite competitive through the first stage. So kudos to them. And we see 1.30 rating plus in both of these showings. I will confidently say Safe has arrived. And I think we're going to get more of that excellent showing in this next stage. And the reason why I'm so impressed with this showing, it's not just the numerics, because the numbers obviously tell a story, but it's the narrative that comes with it. It's the fact that he is, let's see here. How old is this young player? He is, and when I say young, I mean in experience, because of course people will look at age and go, well, he's 27, right? Sure, he's 27 in age, but this guy has 3 years of documented experience on HLTV, the first of which was 9 maps in 2019. So we're talking his first full year, probably 2020 in an official setting. That turnaround is pretty nuts. We're talking Pain, Paquita, and Furia. That's this guy's career trajectory. Now 27, okay? To imagine that this guy probably started late, learned quick, and is now on the top Brazilian team after they've done a few shuffles. So they've shown that they're not afraid to mix it up if things go south, and has a bad showing at the major prior. Comes in, and now he's a top performer for his team and a top opper at the challenger stage. So huge kudos to him, and whoever they play first, I would be very worried just because this crowd is confidently behind them. And this current meta of Counter-Strike has proven when your opper is in form, as evident by the fact that Shiro, Simple, and Zai were probably the 3 best players in the world this year. Safe turning it on with Kea Serato and Yuri in form, that's a world beater. legitimately a world beater. Then you combine it with the crowd. I do not want to play these guys. I would not want to play these guys first round. So yeah, on top of that, Furia are a scary bunch. So on the topic of Shiro, Simple, ZywOo, probably the 3 best players in the world this year. ZywOo almost didn't make it, but he did. So we're back on a reset. What does that look like? That's close. That's going to be close. That's for sure. I think right now Shiro is looking closer to Simple than ZywOo is to Simple. And I would argue that Shiro is closer to Simple than ZywOo is to Shiro. This stage, even with Cloud9 not looking good, because they did not look good until that very, very tail end of the stage, Shiro was looking Simple-esque. And I know, like, I remember seeing, like, ZywOo go crazy when he first started, and when m0NESY goes crazy and first starts. But they have this... It's easy, but you want to refrain, right? You don't want to go, well, this guy might be the next Simple. And I know people did that with m0NESY, right? And he kind of found his own little zone where he might be. You know, it's a little too early for him probably. Shiro has been in this game officially as far as like top level, you know, going back to Gambit Youngsters, we're talking 2-3 years. I think this now, as good as any, this is his moment where we're talking Simple-esque, you know. ZywOo had his opportunity. He entered that echelon ZywOo-esque. I don't think m0NESY has quite hit that level yet, just because he's not here at this form. He's not here on this stage at this form. He has been unable to produce it at a major level. What we have here with Shiro, we have 1.52s, we have 1.49s, 1.45s consistently in best of threes. Like, this is a different level. And sure enough, of course, we get Cloud9 versus FaZe in the first round. And I am so unbelievably excited for that. Best of 1. And we're getting a red hot Cloud9 right now, who, although they did squeeze through with overtime wins and they had to take it to the final round of the stage, Shiro only got better. As even when they were playing poorly, they got better. So they start to figure it out as a team. He gets better. I think if we get the Cloud9 now we don't know what level of FaZe we're going to get. I personally do not perceive FaZe to be in form. I think this is a favorable round 1 matchup for Cloud9. I think this is what Shiro needs to continue that 152, that 150. I think if you get like a Bad News Eagles, a MOUZ, a Sprout, that's where you maybe get an opportunity for Axile or one of these guys to comfortably take over, because, you know, it's a lesser quality team. It's easy to kind of steamroll, right? We're going to get a hardly contested match. FaZe is going to bring it to them. It's going to force Shiro to stay in that level. And I think that's when we're going to get the best out of Shiro. And then moving to that next set of games, which coincidentally is so juicy for us. Vitality versus Navi round 1. So we're going to get ZywOo versus Simple round 1. So the questions will be answered right away, because we saw Nexa do it. Nexa for two maps, and I'd say a quarter of that third map, ZywOo was largely ineffective. He didn't lack impact when he was there, but they rendered him useless by forcing rotates, by making him stay in positions where he would then later offer no impact because they ended up in a different area. We're not going to get that this time. We're going to get, especially against Navi, we're going to get an aggressive ZywOo, because they get through here. This 0-0 match is done. They don't have to play Navi until the rest of the playoffs. Okay. So if they can get this done, ZywOo can come in form, get this handled. You take a breath and you move forward. But of course, the GOAT, Simple, he's going to try and stop that. So we're going to get 2 incredibly juicy matchups to start that pertain to all 3 of those operas that I'm talking about that will very likely take the 1, 2, and 3 spots. If Shiro comes in here and dominates, the way that I personally expect him to, because I foresee Cloud9 making top 8. I think we're going to get Simple, Shiro, ZywOo in that order, but who knows? I don't decide that. CS Mercurio, what's up? Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for following. I appreciate it. When I look at these 8 teams, the one thing that I'm curious about, and when we look back historically, there's very, very few pockets of time in this major history when a team has started at that first stage and made it through to the major final and actually won. And turns out only 2 teams have ever done that. Astralis, the first major they won. Cloud9. Cloud9. Just gonna leave that there. American Cloud9, by the way. So when I look at these advancing teams, we look at Mouse, Bad News Eagles, Big, Outsiders, Furia, Vitality, Cloud9, Fnatic. Do I see a major winner in this group of teams? There's only 2 here that I see. Cloud9, for sure the number 1, where I assume if any team's going to do it, it's going to be them. And no gimmicks here. There's no if this, if that. I just think I just said if. This team comes in and they play the way that they have shown these last 2 rounds, they can compete with any of these teams. I believe that. Furia, on the other hand, if Safe can carry this form to the next level into this stage, which we don't know if he can, we do not know. That's why there's ifs. If he does, and if they do not succumb to the hometown pressure, which I don't think they will, but if those 2 things work in Furia's favor, I think this is a top 8 team, and maybe a little better, maybe like a 6 or a 5, just because I'm real curious about Na'Vi. We haven't seen them play in a month. It feels like anything can happen. I agree, Hots. I too am very curious about how they will perform. I'm very curious of the SDY variable. I don't fear Simple at all in terms of, because obviously if he doesn't perform, they're not going to go deep, but I don't fear that. I don't fear the way that Nexa was able to render ZywOo ineffective through strategy. I don't think you can do that with Simple. Simple's just too assertive and he's too overpowering. If he gets impatient by way of strategic, the strategy kind of rendering him useless, sort of like how Nexa did to ZywOo, he will just push down mid. He will just gamble on a stack. He will just do things that other players don't have the impatience for or the stones to do, really. And that just comes with him being the GOAT, I guess. So honestly, I don't know how the Na'Vi Vitality matchup goes. I do think it's going to go heavily on ZywOo and Simple, but I think as far as like a secondary consideration is going to be because Apex, even though he wasn't statistically on fire during this Vitality comeback of sorts, I don't want to say comeback, but where they were looking kind of out of it in sorts. They weren't looking like the Vitality that claimed the number 1 spot, and then kind of as they worked their way back into it, especially during that series against OG. Although Apex wasn't impactful in terms of numerics, he does bring something out of server. He makes a good play and he brings the camaraderie, the hoop and the holler. And I feel like energy-wise, he was keeping them in the game. And I know that's a hard thing to translate because it is a game that is played in server. And for people who don't really care about those intricacies, it's easy to dismiss that. But I think Apex was very pivotal for them to stay alive in that regard as far as morale is concerned, especially with how Spinks was kind of getting abused for a chunk of that series. He didn't really look great as like B anchor on Inferno and things of the sort. So I think there's certainly there's more room for concern, in my opinion, for Vitality. And I don't think and that is the unfortunate byproduct of the fact that we have seen them play. Because we have not seen Na'Vi play yet, it's hard to outright say they're going to struggle because we haven't seen it yet. But Vitality, we did watch struggle. So we can bring some tangible evidence to the forefront and say, they might struggle. But honestly, I don't know. Um, but I guess when I'm looking at this matchup, I think the C9 FaZe matchup bears more weight than the Navi Vitality, because I don't think Vitality wants to go, like if Vitality goes 0-1 here and they somehow miraculously get stuck playing Cloud9 or FaZe, or like a Furia or ENCE, or like a NiP or Fnatic, that is a disaster for Vitality. I do believe so, even in Outsiders. And there's some tough matchups to start here. So I think worst case scenario out of these four teams, FaZe, Cloud9, Navi, Vitality, if Vitality goes down 0-1, out of all four, they are in the most trouble. And that's just that. That's just my opinion. The other three teams just have way too much of extended arsenal. So that's just me. But kind of going back, do I think any of these 8 teams, because I know we're bouncing all over the place, and I tried to keep it corralled, but too many thoughts over these last 7 days of competition. And, me not tweeting for the whole week left me with a lot of thoughts. So honestly, that's kind of the gist of my challenger stage side of things. My big, just going back to the original sentiment that I offered, Mouse, I'm not going to underrate him like that anymore. Bad News Eagles, I'm not going to underrate him anymore. I'm not going to lie, I was definitely on the hate wagon for Mouse, and specifically Dexter's in-game leading ability. I really had no confidence in it, no belief. I will 100% say egg on my face. They came and they brought it, and they beat worthy opponents, certainly. Teams that I thought were going to do better than them. So I got to give them kudos. Bad News Eagles, those guys are legit as can be. I should have honestly given them more props to begin with. Kieran is over there. KJ as assistant coach. I should have looked closer towards them, knowing that they have some domestic help involved. I should have been a little bit more optimistic in that regard. But hey, I can only watch so much CS, and of course, those guys do play on the other side of the world. So this is the best opportunity to learn right here. So who I expected to go through: Vitality, C9, Furia, Outsiders, Fnatic. Those ones were all correct. My incorrects: EG, 00 Nation. In hindsight, those were stupid decisions, because EG did not even look remotely as they did in the RMR, which obviously you should have expected. An incredible increase in competition from the Americas RMR. And then same as 00 Nation. That was me drinking the Kool-Aid in full force. I drank the whole gallon, dude. I believed in that project way too much. And in 2023, I will not. So you're going to probably hear some slander from my friend in that regard. And then OG, that's just unfortunate, honestly. So if you rerun the simulation, they probably make it, honestly. So what can you do there? But looking at the Legend stage, just looking at the 8 teams, I have done no greater research as far as what 8 teams I think are going to make playoffs. I'm only looking at the first round matchups right now. Haven't ran the calculator, haven't done anything of the sort, haven't done any extensive detail diving, haven't done anything like that. No stats, nothing. I'm just looking at pure vibes, going off of what I saw and what I feel. Honestly, just going off these 8, just going off the first matchups and who I think is going to make it. I think it makes and this is what's difficult, because you see Cloud9 and FaZe face off, Navi and Vitality face off, NiP and Fnatic face off, ENCE and Furia, and then of course you have Heroic, Outsiders, and then Liquid and Mouse. So it's like, if I'm to say that I think Liquid, that I think one of Heroic and Outsiders, that I think Vitality, Navi, FaZe, Cloud9, and NiP are all worthy, and then of course ENCE and Furia are all worthy of making it. It's like, how do all of them make it? Which numerically they can't, but then how do these teams that are all playing each other, how do they get out of the 0-1s? Because it could very well happen that FaZe and Vitality lose, and then they play each other, and now you have an 0-2. So it's so hard to guess how it's going to go, obviously. but purely off of instinct and who I believe the best 8 teams are, just purely off of that stack ranking the 8 best teams. If I am to do that, I think it goes Na'Vi. I think it goes Liquid, Furia, FaZe, NiP. Those are 5 right there. Na'Vi, Liquid, Heroic, FaZe, NiP. I think you get Cloud9 in there. I think you get Spirit, so that's 7. And I think you get one of Furia and Vitality. That's how I think it goes. If ENCE beats Furia and Vitality loses to Na'Vi, and obviously now we're just getting into that simulation calculator sort of thing. If I look at my phone and that's how it goes tomorrow, I lean very much towards ENCE. All of a sudden, I swap out Furia or Vitality, and I swap in ENCE, because from a head-to-head perspective, I do think ENCE has what it takes to beat Vitality, especially in a best-of-3 setting. I really do believe that. And I think the other teams mentioned, I think pound for pound, top to bottom, are just better teams. And I don't think ZywOo, unfortunately, I can't believe I'm saying this, I don't think the ZywOo buff is going to be enough for this major, just because too many teams are coming into this event too strong. So who will go 0-3 and why is it Liquid? Honestly, man, it's seriously, like, I could see Vitality get a really bad draw, and I could see them get grinded out by Outsiders. Like, obviously logic would suggest Sprout, because like they did have a good showing at the RMR, but on paper these guys are out of their league. So Sprout does make a lot of sense. That's the safe pick. BNE is a safe pick. But from what I saw, Vitality do not look good at all. And obviously there's a lot of opportunity for them to pick it up, but I carry a lot of reservation. I don't want to be the crazy person to say they're going to go 0-3. It makes a lot more sense that Fnatic, Big, Sprout, Outsiders, BNE, Mouse, one of those guys do it. But we'll see. I will say this though. If Vitality go 0-3, I just want you, and anybody here that's watching and anybody that's going to watch further, I just want it to be documented that I will not be surprised in any capacity if they go 0-3. The Danish-French mix never made sense to me. Adding in Spinks, none of it makes sense. I don't get it. The vision, I trust Zonics' vision, of course, but I had my reservations when it's all formed. We are now, however far into it, it does not make sense to me. So make of that what you will. I guess since I've pretty much covered everything, but I'll touching up very, very briefly on Liquid. I want to retain my bias from them, but I will say this does feel like a honeymoon event. It really does. It feels like when they grabbed Yekindar off stand-in right away and they just went on this tear. They blow that best of 5 to Vitality, but they come out and they sign Yekindar. I feel like that was a symbol of washing it away. Elise talked about redoing the playbook, and I think this is where we're going to get that. I think we're going to get this newfound honeymoon Liquid where they can now confidently say Daps is the coach and Yekindar is the 5th. Before it was Daps is the coach, Yekindar might be the 5th. He is now implementing his system with Yekindar there for sure for probably multiple years. If I had to guess, this was probably a 1 to 2 I would imagine this is an 18-month to 24-month contract. I would very confidently, or at least a 10 to 12-month contract with an option. That's what would make sense to me. You now have for sure Daps at the helm with Yekindar as secondary in-game leader, Nitro as head caller. There's no questions now. I think we're going to get a honeymoon period. I think we're going to get something special out of Liquid. And anything short of top 8 and then winning the quarters, making semis, anything short of that, I'm disappointed. Because on paper, this team should be able to compete with FaZe, should be able to beat FaZe. Seriously. If they struggled against Complexity at a prior event, this team should be able to beat FaZe. Cloud9, they already beat Cloud9, should be able to beat them again. Vitality, took it to them, and Vitality look worse. Should be able to beat them. Navi, that's a question mark. NiP should be able to beat them. Fnatic, ENCE, Furia, Sprout, Big, Heroic, that's a tough one. Outsiders, matchups make fights. That's a tough matchup. Spirit, also a tough one. BNE and Mouse, I think those are easy. I think off of matchup, I think Yekindar is a good catalyst to get over the hump against his CIS contemporaries and Outsiders and Spirit. But that Navi one, I'm very unsure of. And then sitting on it for a quick second, the Cloud9 one I do fear just because of their current form, but Liquid has beat them recently. There's only about 3 or 4 teams that I think are at the same level as Liquid or better confidently. That's Heroic, that is Navi, that is Cloud9, and off of matchups, I'm going to say 4A and 4B, Outsiders and Spirit, because it's hard to believe that they can both compete. Just talking numbers. But Liquid should enter top 8, 3-1 or 3-0. Anything less than that, not good. I don't want a day 5 elimination do or die. I don't want that. And of course, doesn't matter what I want. It's going to come down to what they do in the server. So honestly, that's got to be all of it, man. We're going on 45 minutes. That's got to be everything we've covered here. We've talked the challenger stage, underrates, overrates. We're talking the Truxican standoff between Shiro, Simple, ZywOo. What do you do with EG? Has Safe arrived? Do we have a major winner out of this group from the challenger stage? And my expectations for this next stage. So honestly, that's kind of it. I will say this. I want a breakout event from OC. I want it so bad. So bad. I want OC supremacy in Rio in front of a crowd. I want the next level unlocked because I know this isn't the last we've seen of Josh Ohm's growth. And please give it to me sooner rather than later. Oh man, that would be something special. But anyway, now I'm just offering semantics. I'm not saying anything of substance. So I'm going to get out of here, guys. For those of you that tuned in on Twitter Spaces, if anyone did, I've been testing the water on there, trying to get more involved in that space. So thank you so much for tuning in there. Everyone that tuned in on Twitch, even if it was for 1 second, greatly appreciate it. Thank you for the quick appearance from OJ Borg. And of course, the follows from CS Mercurio and 1HP The Hots. Your guys' support is super appreciated. I haven't been super active on the streaming and side of things for a long time. Any prediction who will win the major? I'm going to just be safe here. Honestly, I think I'm not going to be safe here. I think besides Navi, because I don't think FaZe repeats here. I'm going to flat out say that I don't think FaZe repeats. I think if I had to stack rank the 3 best teams as far as who I believe number 1 best chance, number 2 best chance, number 3 best chance, I'm going Navi, I'm going Cloud9, and I'm going Heroic. I am very high on Heroic entering this event. I think right now they're flying under the radar in terms of where people rate them, which is very uncommon for what, as of late, where people have rated Heroic during the pandemic, the online era, and then like the 6 to 8 months after the pandemic. It felt like everybody had them ready to go. You know, every event was theirs. And I feel like they've kind of gone under the radar here for this event. I think that's good for them, and I think they're going to do magic at the major. And I for sure have them locked in at top 4. No doubt in my mind they're a top 4 team. So if they're in the finals, and if Heroic takes a trophy home for Denmark, don't be surprised. But who do I think is favorited? Navi. Who do I want to win? Liquid. So unfortunately, I'm playing it a little safe. I don't have like a de facto number one who will win the major just because, honestly, the boring answer is Navi. That's just it. But I'm hoping for something special. That's all I'm going to say. I hope whatever it is we get, I hope that the real major, which will already be historic. We've already gotten historic challenger stage numbers. I know we're going to get historic viewership numbers for the rest of the event. I just hope we get something historic, whatever it is. Whether that means Simple locking in his second trophy, whether that means a phase repeat, which I don't think will happen, whether it's Shiro coming in and assuming the new CIS crown, whether it's Liquid getting over the hump, Heroic getting over the hump, whatever it is. I just want something historic. So that's all I'm here for, man. I'm just here for the history so I can talk storylines moving forward. So, but that's it. That's got to be it. We're going on an hour. And yeah, I don't know. That's it, guys. I've really, really loved this, though. I'm going to do this more for sure. Fury vs. Liquid in the grand final. You hear it first here. We have a man on the outside of the simulation, and it is Mr. Hots right here, 1 HP the Hots, giving us the inside scoop of what's going to happen. So remember where you heard it first. I'm loving this live stream stuff, so I'm going to be hitting this stuff really hard after the Rio Major and during the Rio Major. So everybody who tuned in, please do more. I'm going to be doing my best to get this more marketed, and I'm going to be doing, hey, well, thanks a lot, Mercurio. I appreciate it. And yeah, I really appreciate that. And honestly, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build something here as well. I love doing stuff for Dust 2, but I'm trying to focus more in on the community here at the Crouch Peak side of things, on my more personal brand, maybe do some more interactive communication with the viewers and things, just because you don't get that with the articles. So any way I can get more involved and spread ideas and learn some things from everybody else too, because I don't know everything. So yeah, I intend on this being active again, like it was when I first started Crouch Peak, but in more of a live setting. So for anybody who prefers the recordings, that will be up on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts, everything. So we're going to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Everybody on Twitch, Mercurio and Hots, thank you so much. Everybody on the Twitter space, thank you so much. And your follows are super appreciated. If nothing else, just a simple follow goes a long way. So thanks so much, guys. And I will 100% see everybody at the next episode, probably after the Legend stage as we prepare for the playoffs. So thanks so much. Take care.